Hello and welcome to part 6 of season 2 of my Watch Sailor Moon Learn Japanese series. In this series, I break down Sailor Moon scenes one word at a time and teach Japanese that way and also show you the Japanese translating process. So let's get started.
純粋な心を持ったお友達をいじめるなんて許せない意に変わってあきあきや
So first, a quick disclaimer, this series is intended for intermediate Japanese learners, so I'm going to breeze through a lot of the beginning level grammar stuff, so if you are a beginner, you might be a little lost here and there, but I do have a 45-part series called Japanese for Beginners that goes over those beginning level parts, and you heard it here first, I am doing a part 2 of that series using the Genki textbooks starting in January, so if you want more in-depth intermediate Japanese learning, hey, it's gonna happen. Anyway, the links to those things are in the video description below. Blah, 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 blah. You came here to learn Sailor Moon Japanese, so let's do some Sailor Moon Japanese. So when we last left our heroes, Usagi had transformed into Sailor Moon to save Rei, whose pure heart crystal is being almost stolen by MIKUUJI, the monster of the day, or the flasher of doom, as I call them, because they flash people with their stars. Anyway, so MIKUUJI says,
ピュアな心こそこちらの狙いさ。ピュアな心が狙い？
Pyua na kokoro koso kochira no nerai sa. So Pyua na kokoro, pure heart crystal, koso. So koso is often like translated as it is the very thing that. So X koso would be X is the very thing that. So Pyua na kokoro koso. The pure heart crystal is the very thing that. Kochira no nerai. So kochira means this, but it also means my. So in this case it means my, and the nerai is like my target. So kochira no nerai, my target. So the pure heart crystal is the very thing that is my target. Ah, indeed, the pure heart crystal is, the thing that I'm after. The sa at the end is sort of like a ha kind of ending to your sentence. Kind of like when you're a kid and you finish your little, like, you owe me $10, so ha. It's like ending a sentence with so ha, sort of. So this koso is often difficult to translate or localize rather. You don't always want to localize it as is the very thing that. Like that'll be the dictionary definition of it, but it doesn't always work super well that way. So I translated that as, I'm after the pure heart crystal, not the girl. Like, it is the pure heart crystal that I am after. I don't really care about Rei. Like, I just want her pure heart crystal is kind of what she's expressing. So I added in that, not the girl, just, to make it more clear, like, it is the pure heart crystal. That is what I want. If it were a dub, the voice actor could inflect certain words, and then I wouldn't have to add that not the girl in there necessarily to make it extremely clear what MIKUUJI actually wants and is saying. Luna asks, Pyua na kokoro ga nerai? So she's basically just repeating what MIKUUJI said, but as a question. Oh, the pure heart crystal is her target?
Anata no unzei wa Daikyou desu!
And then MIKUUJI says, Anata no unzei wa. We covered this in the last episode, so your fortune is. And then Daikyou desu. We went over that last episode as well. Great curse.
なんだあの化け物はYouma! 変身して戦いましょう
The other girls finally arrive at the scene, and MAKO-chan says, Nanda, ano bakemono wa. Nanda, it's like, what the hell? What? Ano bakemono, that bakemono monster. So, as you can see, this is an example of how Japanese sentences are often, like, flipped for certain kinds of emphasis. So, if you flip that sentence, it's ano bakemono wa nanda. Then that makes, like, a complete sentence. As for that monster, what is it? But she split it, so it's like, what is that monster? Sort of like that. So it just changes the emphasis when you switch the sentences like that. So as you can see, I put the sentence back together again the way it was supposed to be to translate it, because otherwise it gets a little choppy in English. And then MINAKO just asks, Youma? So Youma are any monsters that and those are mostly like first season monsters they call Youma, because the second season monsters are droids basically. So they don't know like what this monster of the day is called yet, right? So she's like, Youma? Is it a Youma? Are we dealing with the Dark Kingdom again, maybe? I translated that as, is it a Youma rather than just Youma? I don't know, it sounds kind of weird. In Japanese, it doesn't sound as weird to just ask a noun like that with no other words, just Youma. But in English, it sounds a little weird to do that sometimes, so I just added the is it a, Is it a Youma? Ami, the reasonable one, says, Henshin shite tatakai mashou. So henshin, you might remember from previous lessons, is to transform. Henshin shite, so we're using the te form of the verb to connect these two thoughts. We will transform and tatakai mashou, tatakau is to fight. Tatakai mashou would be the let's fight form of that verb. So let's transform and fight. Notice how I moved the let's to the beginning, so it applies to both the transform and the fight.
あなたたちの運勢は今日です
And then MIKUUJI says, Anata-tachi no unsei wa. So your fortune is, unfortunately, English doesn't really have a good, solid you plural. Y'all's fortune is, MIKUUJI wouldn't say y'all. Yeah, you girls' fortune, it sounds and looks so weird in subtitles, so just your fortune. And she's mixing things up a little bit with just plain kyou desu. Not Daikyou desu, just kyou desu. So it's not great curse, it's just curse.
強い今までの敵とは段違いよ
Artemis says Tsuyoi. So this is a prime example of oftentimes Japanese people will make complete sentences out of just one single noun or one single adjective or one single verb. He's making a complete sentence out of just one adjective, Tsuyoi, strong. You would not want to localize that as strong. That we don't talk like that, so she's strong. And then I took that a step further to she's powerful. Strong isn't always the best translation for tsuyoi in applications like that. Sometimes it literally, because when we say strong, we think like, strong. Sometimes we think other kinds of strong, but usually we think like muscly strong. But if someone's like a strong fighter, he's really saying she's powerful. Because MIKUUJI, I mean, I guess she has demonstrated strength, but like telekinetic strength. Like she has her stone hands restraining Rei, and she'll like throw fortunes at people and stuff. But that's not strong necessarily. That's more like powerful. So I translated that as she's powerful. So Luna says, imamade no teki. So imamade, up until now, no. So up until now, teki, enemy. So the enemies of up until now. The enemies up until now that we have faced. To wa, so she's going to make a comparison here. Danchigai, danchigai yo. Danchigai means like a whole nother level or like a different league. And I localize that as in a totally different league than before. She's just kind of finishing Artemis's thought. And you'll notice that Japanese people tend to do this a lot. They have sort of a, I hesitate to say they have sort of a hive mind because that reinforces that stereotype of, oh, they're just a mindless Borg. But they're very in tune to what other people are thinking. They really care about what other people are thinking and saying and really connecting with other people. There, I put that in a positive light because it can be a positive to really be very group-thinky. And this comes out a lot in anime dialogue, especially Sailor Moon dialogue. You will frequently have character A saying the first half of the thought, character B finishing the thought. So that's why I didn't make it like a complete standalone sentence on its own. She's in a completely different she's just adding on to Artemis's thought. She's powerful in a completely different league. It just kind of flows a little better that way, and it uses fewer characters.
目障りなこの邪魔者どう始末してくれよ何者
Mezawarina is sort of like it's an abomination. Kono jamamono. So jamamono comes up a lot in Sailor Moon. Intruders is kind of like literally what jamamono means. Like jama is to disturb or to intrude. Jamamono, pests. So do, how. Shimatsu suru is to like assassinate, to dispose of in that regard, to kill basically. So shite kureyo. So shite kureru, as you may or may not know, it's an ending to a verb that means you're doing this verb like as a favor. Graciously, you're like graciously doing this verb. So shimatsu shite kureru would be like, I am graciously disposing of these pests. But then it's kureyo, so kuremashou ka, because it has a question mark after that. So if you have that mashou or yo verb with like a questioning, it's like, how shall I do this verb? So this is a very sort of gracious, again, it's villainy speak. I think villains are a lot more likely to kind of speak grandly this way. How shall I dispose of these pests? And then I localize that as, now, how shall I dispose of these repulsive pests? And then, oh my god, a rose appears out of nowhere. How terrifying. And then she says, nani mono? So, nani, what, mono, person. What person? beautiful translation. So who's there? Or who goes there actually would be a good translation of that as well, because nanimono is sort of like contemporary people don't talk like that. Now we have one of Tuxedo Mask's trademark poetic speeches.
春爛漫心地よい日差しの中で騒動の嵐を巻き起こす不届き者め立ち去るがいい
Alright, so get a load of this. He says, Haru ramman. So that itself is kind of a phrase, kind of an idiom, like springtime in full bloom. Kokochiyoi hizashi no naka de. So kokochiyoi, you might know kokochi. It's like a comforting, soothing. Kokochiyoi would be sort of just the more like old school formal way of saying kokochi. So the more like, you know, he's being very formal and poetic here. Hizashi is sunlight. No naka de. So inside of the soothing, comforting sunlight, and then springtime in full blossoms. So, translating Tuxedo Mask requires a lot of poetic finesse here. I tried my best. I'm not a poet. Amid the gentle, flowery sunbeams of spring. It needs something like that. Then that's how I localized it. He continues, Soudou no arashi o makiokosu futodoki mono me. So, sodo is an uproar. Arashi is like a storm, a hurricane, a torrent. Ooh, torrent. I like that word. Who dares store torrents of chaos? Ooh, I don't know if that's correct, but torrents. I'm going to change that right now in real time as I'm recording this video. All right, I'm so prepared. So, sodo no arashi, like torrents or storms of chaos. I just translated sodo, uproar. Storms of uproar sounds dumb. Chaos sounds a lot better. So that's an object. These storms of chaos are an object. We're going to do a verb to them. Makiokosu is to stir up, kind of like a tornado. Futodoki mono me, actually I had to look up this because it's a weird archaic word. So futodoki mono is like an outrageous, rude person or a villain, pretty much. And then if you add the me to the end of it, it turns it into like, damn thingy-mabobber, or like, you evil thingy-mabobber. So, you evil villain, basically. So, again, he's still being very uber poetic and like archaic Japanese here. Not super archaic, not like Jomon levels of archaic Japanese, but pretty like poetic. I damn any villainess who dares stir torrents of chaos. I still don't even like that right now. Maybe I've changed it in post, but yeah. Tuxedo Mask always says some kind of like very grand poem when he appears and then does nothing because that's his thing. Anyway, moving on. He finishes his poem off with tachisaru ga ii. So tachisaru is to be gone, to go away. And then if you have a verb and then ga ii, it's like you should do this verb, but also like do this verb, I beseech thee. Like you shall, in a commanding way, do this verb. So I translated that as be gone at once.
And
then MIKUUJI asks, Kisama mo uranatte hoshii ka? So kisama is like that older version of you, and also like, by older I mean like in history, older Japanese version of you, but also like a more noble version of you, and also like a rude version of you. It's often just, like on its own, it's often just translated as bastard or you bastard. So kisama mo uranatte hoshii ka? So if you have a te form of a verb followed by hoshii, it means want to have that verb done to you or want to do that verb. Yeah, depending on the form of the verb that comes before it. So, kisama mo uranatte hoshii ka? Uranau is to have your fortune told. So, do you wish to be cursed as well? Is how I localized it. Even though she was literally saying, do you wish to also have your fortune told? I don't know, that just sounds like not quite right. It sounds weird. It doesn't sound cool. Do you wish to be cursed as well? Has a better ring to it. It's more direct. And that's what she means. Like, would you also like a curse? And then Tux says, Imada, Sailor Moon. Like, he says that pretty much every freaking episode. So Imada is like, now, do it now. So I translated that as, now's your chance, Sailor Moon. And then she says, hi, which, okay. And then lots of dancing and spinning around while the enemy is still there and doing stuff. Moon Princess Halation. That's English, supposedly, even though I had never heard the word halation before Sailor Moon. And then MIKUUJI says, koshakuna! So koshaku is like impudent, basically. And again, this is an example of a sentence that's just a verb. Impudent. That sounds dumb. It doesn't sound cool. So impudent brat, I translated it as that. And then she goes, Daikyou triangle. It's like, I have my own fancy English word attack. Haha. So Daikyou, great curse. Triangle, triangle. So great curse triangle. Ooh, I'm scared. Actually, that does sound a lot scarier than Moon Princess Halation. And then she follows it up with Butsumetsu. So Butsumetsu is like literally the absolute worst fortune that you could get. It literally means Buddha's death or Buddha's destruction. And it's also sort of like it's Buddha's death day. So that is the most inauspicious, the least lucky day of ever. Or, you know, if you get Butsumetsu is like your fortune. That's like, oh my god, that's absolute, you're gonna die. It's like really, really bad luck. So I localized that as Buddha's death. I decided to keep it like more literal, you know, keep the Buddhism in there. And then Usagi's Moon Princess Halation doesn't work, and she says, konna koto tte. So here's a great example of she starts a sentence and then trails off. You could add a bunch of crap after konna koto tte and go anywhere with that, but she didn't. She just trailed off. So konna koto, this sort of thing, literally, and then te, that small su followed by te. It's like, this sort of thing? Like, oh my god, this sort of thing could never happen. This sort of thing is crazy. This sort of thing is wonderful. Like you could go anywhere with that depending on what she adds after that te. Obviously she's like really confused and scared and like, so I translated that as how can this be? Cause oh my god, my attack didn't work and now I'm de-transformed and I'm just Usagi again. How can this be? And then Rei Seramun. No translation needed. Tux Usako, no translation needed.
あなたの運勢は今日です。Tuxedo Mask!
MIKUUJI again. あなたの運勢は今日です。We already know what that is. Tuxedo Kamen-sama, Tuxedo Mask. Bunch of people calling names and stuff.
もう見てられない。待って。
So Luna says, mo miterare. So mo means like, not anymore, or God, like it can mean so many different things. Miterareru would mean I can remain in a state of watching. So miterare nai means I cannot remain in a state of watching, literally what that means. So I translated that as I can't just stand here, or I've got to do something. Yeah, I've got to do something. You could go a number of ways with that. It could be I can't bear to watch, or I can't bear to watch anymore, or I can't just stand here, or you could just go with I gotta do something. You could go any direction with that, but basically her sentiment is she's been just standing there and watching and she just can't anymore. Like she has to do something. She knows she can't. Turn the tides. The Moon Princess Halation didn't work. The powerful roses and poetry didn't work against this daimon. What's a cat gonna do? But you know, she's just gonna go do it anyway. And then Artemis yells, Luna! And then Luna yells, Yamete! So yameru is to stop. Yamete would mean stop, but it can mean lots of different things really. So I just localized that as leave her alone. And then Artemis yells, Koitsu! So koitsu literally means like this person. This person. Oh, that's so threatening. Usually if you say koitsu like that in a menacing way, you're saying like, you son of a bitch. Like that's actually what it means more. So I translated that as you monster because I can't say bitch in Sailor Moon. It's a kid's show. And she is a monster. So you monster. You son of a bitch would be too many syllables anyway. So you monster. And then Minako yells Artemis, and Ami yells Luna. So many names being yelled in this section.
邪魔者はこれで全部か。それではゆっくりとピュアな心をいただくか。
Okay, and then MIKUUJI, now that she swatted the cats away, you evil, evil creature, now I want you to die because cats, you should never assault cats. She says, 邪魔者はこれで全部か. So 邪魔者, the pests. As for the pests, これで with this, with all of the attacking that I have just done, 全部か so all of them. So with this attacking that I have done, are all of the pests gone now? I translated that as are all the pests at bay now. Because she didn't literally say the word gone or dead or anything. There's no verb actually. As for the pests, everything. So I get to decide what the rest of that sentence is. And at bay, I think that just sounds kind of cool. And that is kind of what she's doing. She didn't kill them, she just kind of subdued them so that she could take care of the pure heart crystal business. And she says, それではゆっくりとピュアな心をいただくか? So それでは you'll hear this in variety shows a lot, like それでは参りましょう, like それでは is like well then. ゆっくりと means slowly. ピュアな心をいただく. So we went over this itadaku before in a previous segment of this series. So itadaku is to partake, to eat. Like literally in the second half of this season, the Daimon do eat the pure heart crystals. Partake. So now I shall partake of your pure heart crystal. Usagi yells, yamete! So again, it's that verb yamete, to stop, but I translated it as no. Stop would work too, or don't also works really well. The girls all yell, Rei, and Usagi yells, Rei, Rei-chan. And then Usagi says, Rei-chan, shikari shite. So shikari shite, a lot of times in my fan sub days, I'd noticed people would translate this as hang in there, or for shikari shite. Sometimes it kind of means that, but usually it seems to function more as a open your eyes or snap yourself out of it or get up or something like that. In this case, it definitely is because Rei's just like, and Usagi's like, speak to me. That's kind of more what she would say in an English situation. So I translated that as Rei, snap out of it. And then she screams, Rei-chan, Rei-chan! And then we have a whole flashback sequence with Rei and Usagi having their sweet little Rei asking Usagi, oh, what's your dreams for the future? It's like, I want to be a singer and a songwriter and marry someone and all that. So go back to part 3, I believe, of this series to get the breakdown of that little moment, that conversation. I'm not going to go over it again in this episode. But basically, Usagi's remembering that sweet little conversation she had with Rei, and it's very sad.
このピュアな心の結晶の中にタリスマンがあるはず。
Okay, and then MIKUUJI says, このピュアな心の結晶の中に. So, inside of, no 中に, this pure heart crystal, このピュアな心の結晶. 結晶 is crystal again. Crystallization. So inside of this pure heart crystallization, talisman ga aru hazu. So this hazu thing is like there ought to be, there should be. So talisman ga aru hazu, there ought to be or there should be a talisman. So there ought to be or there should be a talisman inside of this pure heart crystal. She's convinced, all right? So I localized that as this pure heart crystal surely holds a talisman inside. And then Usagi yells, kaeshite! You'll hear that a lot in anime. So kaesu is to return something. Kaeshite is the commanding form, like please return, but not necessarily please, just like return it, begging. So give it back. Sore o Rei-chan ni kaeshite yo. So sore, that thing that you, MIKUUJI, are holding, because it is so. Sore o Rei-chan ni, so to Rei-chan, to Rei, kaeshite, give it back to Rei-chan. So give that back to Rei. And then she's whimpering and she knows she's lost. She's feeling very hopeless and she's whimpering, yurusanai kara. So you may remember this yurusanai is one of Sailor Moon's catchphrases. It has often been translated as I won't forgive you, but I think that's a horrible, horrible translation of it because yurusu, it has more of a allow or permit vibe to it rather than a forgive. It's like forgiving in English is like, you have done something wrong and I forgive you for it. Whereas yurusu is more like, I will let you do this thing. Like you haven't even necessarily done the thing yet, but I am allowing you, I'm giving you permission. I am yurusu you to do that thing. It can be for, literally forgiving you for something that you have done wrong, but yurusu is more along the lines of like giving someone permission to do something. Whereas forgive is more like, you have done something wrong, but you're apologizing and I forgive you or something like that. So anyway, yurusanai kara. I translated that as, or you'll be sorry. Because that's kind of the vibe that you get from this yurusanai kara. It's like, if you do this thing, you're not going to get away with it. I'm not going to let you get away with this thing. So you'll be sorry, you'll pay dearly. Those are all different ways that I'll translate yurusanai. The kara is kind of like, I swear, I promise, trust me, you're not going to get away with it. And then MIKUUJI is kind of contemplating her victory.
人間か哀れな生き物
So ningen, humans, ka, so humans, humans, huh? Aware na ikimono. So aware na is a poor, pitiful, tragic. Ikimono is a living being. But she goes, ikimono, no. Because somebody's attacked her. Yay, I wonder who it is. I know who it is. But anyway, so I translated that as, humans. Pitiful creatures with no. So because I loved the no, especially in English, because then it kind of turns into a pun of like, no, like don't do that, as in that kind of no. And she's being cut off mid-sentence here. So I wanted her to be cut off mid-sentence. So pitiful creatures with no hope for survival, with no recourse, with no hair that looks good. I don't know. But anyway, she's cut off mid-sentence and goes, no. And then a big giant tidal wave attacks her. And she goes, na, which is basically the short version of nani or nanda, which is what. And then she says, ittai nani ga okotteru nda. So ittai nani, like, means what in the world, ga okotteru. Okotteru is to happen. So what in the world is happening? And I translated that as, how is this happening? I kind of prefer the how is this happening rather than what in the world is happening, because she was just so incredibly convinced that she had it in the bag. She's like, humans are so pathetic and I easily defeated them, and like, how is this even happening? I was like just about to run home to Cowardly Night with this talisman crystal, and then out of nowhere, randomly, I just get attacked and now I'm dead. What the hell? The writers didn't tell me this was going to happen. Yeah, I kind of liked the how is this happening better. That just shows her hubris a little more. And then the last word that she says before she dissolves is yakuyoke, which is a protection charm. Or a talisman. So I did not translate that as talisman in this case. Ordinarily, I would have totally translated that as a talisman. But since we already have this tarisman in English, that is a theme of this whole season, it would be really confusing and weird, because she didn't mean that kind of talisman. She means, like, again, because they're Japanese, because English is not their first language, when they hear tarisman, they don't think talisman. They think exotic foreign word. They'll know what it means, but it doesn't register to them the same way that it registers to us. So I translated that as protection charm, because if she was yelling talisman as her last words, you would probably think that she's talking about the talisman, when in fact she's just doing her MIKUUJI-ism of like, I cast all of these like charm spells and desperate attempts to try to kill people or save my own life. And in this case, she's like just her last Hail Mary trying to save her own life with a protection charm. But it doesn't work, because our mysterious shadowed characters, who we don't know who they are yet, are just too powerful. So anyway, that was part 6 of Watch Sailor Moon Learn Japanese Season 2. There is one more part after this. If you like this Watch Sailor Moon Learn Japanese series and you want to see more of it, and if you also want some additional bonus content, I do have a new tier in my Patreon specifically for that, so you can vote with your dollars and also like get some fun Sailor Moon related translated perks out of it. So of course the link to that is in the description, and I think I've shilled enough for myself in this video. So thank you to all of the patrons at that level and at all the other levels who keep this channel going and who keep my lights on. And maybe I'll see you in the concluding episode of this particular season of Watch Sailor Moon Learn Japanese. Tsuki no hikari wa ai no message.